Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Metropolitan Republican Club webinar series. My name is Christian Lenzo, and on behalf of the Met Club Board, we are so happy to have you join us tonight. As a quick reminder, we have a link in our live chat, and we hope you'll consider making a contribution this evening to our club to help support events like these. So tonight, we are so happy to have Tim Young join us. Tim, in case you don't already follow him on Twitter and basically everywhere else, he's a political comedian, author, and host who has been a guest on pretty much every major news show and every major publication, whether it's conservative Fox News to the progressive CNN. His voice has been heard and he likes to run his mouth. His media and pop culture takes have been featured in Cosmopolitan to OK Magazine and TMZ Live, and he is currently a Washington Times columnist and a SiriusXM-Patriot personality. But most of all, we just enjoy him for his humor and, again, quick takes. So welcome, Tim.
You didn't say that I was in BET. That BET quoted me too.
Oh, sorry, BET. Oh, my bad.
That's what Republicans do. That's what Republicans do. They leave out black entertainment television. That's where this goes, right? That's the whole. Jeez, it's my most proud quoting. By the way, I just turned down the Young Turks. They asked me to be on yesterday, and I responded. Well, my people responded, "Eat shit." So anyway, hi, welcome to the webinar. What's up,
Welcome to the webinar. I'm sorry that I missed out on BET, but smart move on Young Turks because I don't love a lot of their reporting, to be frank. But let's start off with you, Tim. You have an interesting background, and let's talk about what it's like to be a political comedian in this day and age where everyone is looking to cancel everyone else for whatever reason. I think we know the reason, but it's the woke mob. How do you divert the woke mob from coming to you as someone who enjoys humor?
You just laugh it off and you admit what they try to accuse you of. I had somebody that saved a bunch of tweets of mine a couple of years ago, try to come back last year and try to cancel me for it. And I literally, it was like jokes that I had made in the past. And they were like, these might be offensive now. And I was like, oh no, that's hilarious. And if you lean into it. So I've also done crisis communications for people in my career. I've done a bunch of communications and stuff for people. Just lean into it and be like, yeah, no, that was great. And then they don't know what to do and they go away. But for the most part, you avoid the woke mob by putting your phone down and you don't have notifications on when you're tweeting on Twitter.
But what is it like being a conservative comedian? Because that's certainly pretty niche-y and it's not something you see every day.
No, listen, I'm not going to clubs anymore. I get my hits are colleges, they're events. I get to MC a bunch of stuff. We're talking TV and radio now. I have a pilot that starts filming the first week of August. It's as far as I go, I'm doing quite well with it. And I think a lot of conservative comedians are doing quite well with it. I mean, Gutfeld, he's got 1.7 million viewers every night. He's the highest rated late night show because he's the only conservative. He's the only alternative to all those other people. And I think a lot of companies, smart companies, are wising up and they're investing in conservative humor and just conservative programming and original programming now, instead of going with the same old stuff that is dying in the ratings.
So obviously Trump, we saw him today speak, against Facebook, against Twitter. He's launching a lawsuit against them. Have you ever been canceled on any of these platforms for expressing your opinion? And what did you think of Trump's speech he gave today?
I was suspended once for 24 hours on Twitter right after the election. And they never told me why, but nothing else. I've never been suspended from anything. I know how to hold the line and play their game. And a lot of times it's asking questions is the way you get around it. So instead of saying a statement, you ask a question that you obviously know the answer to, and that's how you make your point. And you'll see that in how I rate things. And also, I of course don't want trans women in biological women's sports. It's one of my biggest issues. I think it's ridiculous. I actually I'm a feminist, right? And I want to defend women. But when I talk about it, I always cheer on trans women in women's sports. And I very much so am very loud about, I want to see trans women, kick the asses of biological women in women's sports. And the feminists, I do believe feminists are going to wake up to this, and the ultra feminists are going to wake up to this. And that's the messaging on my side is, oh man, I can't wait to see essentially this guy beat these women and take their place. And at some point, I think our friends on the left wake up on this one and go, all right, that's a bit far. You're right. So that's how I do it. Trump's speech today was fine. It looked like he was at the White House. Seemed like he was president again.
Yeah, I mean, the optics were really interesting. And certainly it made me forget that we have Sleepy Joe in the White House.
Did you see the photo of Joe with Lori Lightfoot today, where Lori Lightfoot clearly looks offended by whatever he had just said to her?
I did see that photo. What do you think? I mean, well, maybe we shouldn't go into that. But I mean, in terms of political comedy, though, just to back up a little bit, what is it like covering Joe Biden versus the Trump years? I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, Joe does give us some stuff, but how have you been, going back and forth with covering it?
I mean, really, ultimately, both the Biden and Trump characters are the same, and they've been very unique and straight down the line. It's all the characters around them that act out, and the members of Congress that are much more entertaining to go after. I mean, Trump was funny on his own, and Trump would laugh at things about himself. Biden, we know at this point, I mean, apparently he can't eat solid food. He can only eat ice cream every time he goes out. We've never seen him eat solid food, by the way. Put your tinfoil hats on. Unless you want to count chocolate chips, which melt in your mouth, though. But there really isn't much as far as Biden goes. Like, I mean, tripping up the steps, waving to nobody when he was getting on a plane back during the campaign. I mean, he stumbles all over himself. It's old hat at this point. Same thing with Trump. Like, it was a very repetitive character over and over and over again. And so that's not where the entertainment comes. The entertainment for me, and where I try to expose things, is the hypocrisy. It's really funny to laugh at people that way and just expose them for the a-holes that they are.
I mean, there is so much hypocrisy, and I always say the hypocrisy never ceases to amaze me. What are some, recent hypocritical moments that the left has just really whiffed on? Oh,
well, dude, so I was the lead on the Gwen Berry story. I don't know if you saw the Gwen Berry number where she, she did her garbage with the, standing away from the Star Spangled Banner, and one of my very intelligent friends, whatever you want to call them, sent me her website where she was very proudly holding up the American flag. And I was the first person who posted that up and went after her for it. And I said, hey, you got to tell your PR team to take this down. And so, exposing that, it's just kind of funny to do that. I knew she was a phony to begin with. I said that a lot on social media. But when I pushed that up, it's crazy. So it's one thing to be a comic that makes a joke. It's another thing to be a comic and a commentator that then gets into headlines and annoys these people and makes them change their behavior. She took down that website. Her team took down that website. They put out a whole statement. She had to walk back the fact that she hated America. She was like, no, this is the greatest country in the world. It's like, I don't want to cuss too much on this podcast. It's BS. But calling this stuff out is really fun to do for me. And it's just crazy. Not to be like I'm at another level, but it's a different level when your commentary goes crazy. I think my favorite thing that I ever did was a Sunday morning, and it looked like it was a couple years ago. I don't know if you remember this or not, but Justin Trudeau, it looked like his eyebrow was falling off in an interview. And
I don't recall this.
Okay, so it looked like Justin Trudeau's eyebrow was falling off in an interview. And I was getting on Metro in DC. This was back when things were still open before COVID. And I tweeted, it was like a Sunday morning. I forget where I was going, to the coffee shop or something like that. And I get off the train at the coffee shop 10 minutes later, and it already had 1,600 retweets. And then it turned out that my little, I found the video online. It clearly looked like his eyebrow was falling off. And I was like, he was browbeaten by Trump. Yuck, yuck, whatever. 80 international stories were written on that tweet. 80.
Wow.
It is, I don't get it. So that's the interesting thing about my career. And you can say I'm a conservative comedian. I am, but it's kind of I don't want to say influencer, because I think influencers are dumb chicks in bikinis on Instagram. So it's just I'm in a weird spot because I have influenced the news cycle over and over and over again.
That's true.
And it's a bizarre position to be in, because when I do it, okay, another example of this. And sorry, I'm taking over the whole thing here. This is what you get.
No, I want to hear. I asked. I'm curious.
So I'm sitting on the toilet one day after the Grammys, literally taking a poop, and I tweet. I think isn't it crazy? Something like, think about it, or isn't it crazy that the lyrics to WAP are more acceptable in schools than Dr. Seuss books?
That's true.
I put my phone down, and it turns out Cardi B saw this. I did not tag Cardi B. I don't care. I'm not Candace Owens trying to get Cardi B's attention. She tries to get Cardi B's attention. Admit it. Cardi B tweeted at me 3 times in a tirade about that tweet. She saw it and went crazy. And I'm like, okay, dude, you just won a Grammy. You're a multimillionaire. You're a platinum selling artist. You can do whatever you want. But you're hung up on literally a tweet that I sent from the toilet. And then on top of that, and I do a bit on this, I'm not going to go into the full bit. The New York Daily News wrote an entire write-up on the feud between Cardi B and Tim Young. And I'm thinking to myself, some child grew up wanting to be a journalist. They worked hard. They went through internships where they made no money in New York City. They finally get to the New York Daily News. They go out to the most expensive meal of their lives because their parents are so proud of them. They cried when they got this job. And they're writing about a tweet that I wrote on the toilet. Like, just to put that in perspective, like, I'm like, who the hell am I? So it's like it's just a weird position that this person worked their entire career to get to where they are. I tweet something from a toilet and they have to write an article on it. And that's like, there's a weird level of influence and like cultural influence and stuff like that. So as a conservative comic, there aren't many versions of me. You know, you've got Gutfeld, Crowder, who's basically a host now as well. And I can't really name anybody else like prominent off the top of my head. And it's a crazy position to be in. And people are paying a lot more attention to me than what I think.
But I mean, you do make good points. I think that's the basis of it, is that even though it's couched in humor, your points are always, at least from my perspective, valid, and people see that. And by calling it out, it does, create this viral moment. In terms of other people who are on Twitter, who you follow, I guess let's specifically talk about the Republicans more generally. Why do you think the Republicans have had such a hard time getting traction? I mean, AOC, if you look at her Twitter, it's just impeccable. All of her social media, it's just, everyone's looked it over. It looks great. But the Republicans seem to not be able to really get to that same level when it comes to social media use. Why do you think that's the case? And I mean, I think we know, but like, what can they do to improve?
Nobody has balls. Nobody has balls, and the big money doesn't want to hear the stuff. Look, there's stuff that I'm doing on here. I mean, let's be real honest here, Christian. I'm gonna pull back the curtain.
Yeah.
Like, before we went on, you're like, are you sure are we allowed to have Tim drink on this webinar?
That's true.
The fact that you have to answer that question says we're in a bad position, because no Democrat would ask whether or not a Democrat on a cool webinar. And I'm not knocking the organization or you or anything like that. Nobody would ask that on the other side.
That's
and
true.
nobody like, there's no pearl clutching when you swear. There's no pearl clutching when you say crazy things on the other side. They let people be themselves. And so when you get a good character in Congress, say like a Lauren Boebert, she's probably right now the youngest, hottest, and I don't mean hottest because of looks, even though, whatever, person that's there, because she's mouthy. And she's going to stand up for what she believes in all the time. And she's young, and she hasn't been like ground down by the system. The system grinds these people down so quickly.
Yeah.
And they turn into the same like NPC basically of a Republican. And they go along with everything that the Republicans want to do. Like, the thing is, like, okay, you and I have a different perspective. The Metropolitan Club has a different perspective because you guys are Northeast. You understand humor. You've been dealing with liberals your entire life. These big money, like, bubble, they've been in their bubble kind of consultants want to play it safe nonstop. You guys know how to take risks. I know how to take risks. And that's why, actually, I mean, in this cycle, and I'll tell you this, I think I told you this on your To The Point podcast, see how I plugged it there. I was asked by multiple Republicans and think tanks to run for office. And I think that's a shitty job. So I'm never going to do it. Maybe catch me when I'm old, but they're like, they are so hard up to like be like an AOC and find the AOC, but then their actual behavior is nothing like it. And and they keep hiring the same people, and they keep like, it's the same cycle of suck that the Republican Party has gone through. They literally saw what Trump did to succeed. And you look at it and you go, I don't know. How can you do that? It worked for him. DeSantis has figured it out, but
Yeah. I mean, speaking of, Trump certainly drew a very large crowd this past weekend over the July 4th holiday. And then, looking forward, what do you think is going to happen with Trump in the next election, just given your expertise and what you're seeing on social media? And who also, are some of the other leaders? You mentioned DeSantis, but other leaders who we should look to right now in the Republican Party who we should really support to get our message out?
I mean, you got to look to young congressmen, right? So let's go to 2024 just to start with.
Yeah, let's start there.
I think Trump ends up being the candidate again, just because his ego won't let him not run. But I think DeSantis is the vice president, and I think that's a hell of a ticket. I just want Trump to start behaving a little bit more like DeSantis, because DeSantis took notes from Trump, and DeSantis comes from that traditional political side, so he knows when to shut up. And he also knows how to shut down. So I think Trump's biggest fault is that he entertained himself too much. And I get it, because he's got nothing else to do. You're sitting in the White House, you're working, crazy hours, even though he's a CEO of a company before, he's working crazier hours than he's ever worked before. He's got heavier issues. Yeah. Bored to death. And that's why he's tweeting and watching television. Bored to death. He is. And
what about sorry to interject here,
Yeah.
but what about let Trump be Trump? I mean, that's what Corey Lewandowski promoted.
No,
don't let him be Trump.
No, Trump's got to scale it back a bit.
Okay.
And that's like the whole thing. Like, look, I like Trump and I like what he has to say. But the thing is, he's like the comic that beats, like, a joke worked and then he's going to do it 15 more times in a row.
Yeah.
And it's like less is more, buddy. DeSantis has this figured out. So like when DeSantis signed I believe it was the Voting Rights Act, he comes out the back and the back of the door, and he only allowed Fox News in. And the CBS reporter was like, "Why did you have a secret meeting?" And he turns and he laughs and he goes, "It was on national television. You could have watched it. Come on." And then walked away. Trump would probably say a lot of things to it, like, "You're fake news and this is terrible and you're a liar and blah, blah, blah." Hit the bullet point, move on. And really, though, the thing is, and I get it. I think Trump, and I don't know this personally, obviously, I think Trump has probably ADHD. And he really likes entertaining people. He really gets off to entertaining people. And that's why he does the rallies. It's awesome. Yeah. It's great there. But like when dealing with these people directly or sitting on Twitter, when he's sitting around bored at 4 a.m., like, I know he's doing it to entertain himself. And like, God bless him. He's in the position to do it. He did a lot of great stuff for the country. If he just scaled it back just that much, it'd be great. I mean, he retweeted me 9 times. I'm very happy about that. Keep retweeting me, but then, take a break otherwise.
Let's talk about him retweeting you, since you mentioned it. What were some of the ones that you said that got the traction?
Well, like, there were a couple of jokes. So like when Democrats started, the very first one was when Democrats started looking into, I think it was like 62 of his closest, like, confidants or whatever you called it, advisors at the time. I said, what's next? Are they going to investigate every one of the millions of voters? I forget the exact number of voters that voted for him in 2016 as well. And that was the first one he retweeted. He goes, "The witch hunt continues." And I'm like, frame that. I'm always in a weird spot too, like in the grocery store, or like, and like I was in a Salvation Army when that one came up. I was in a Salvation Army in Louisville, Kentucky. And then like he's retweeted some of my policy stuff, but the biggest tweet I ever had was after the first debate, this time with Joe Biden, my criticism of Chris Wallace, saying if you ever want to figure out why people don't trust modern news, replay Chris Wallace's performance tonight in the debate. And Trump, that was like one of the first, I think he only retweeted like 3 people that night, but I just, that's a cool one, right? So because he gets out of this debate, he's clearly pissed off. He goes to sit on Air Force One or wherever he's going, and he's looking at his phone, he sees my tweet and hits the button on that. And he's like, "That's what I'm thinking." That's a wild feeling. Like the other stuff, he retweets a joke. He's retweeted, my commentary on like Maria Bartiromo at one point, a few other things. But like, I could name them all, really. Let's be real here.
Let's be real. But you're all framed behind you.
Yeah, I have not done that yet, but I probably will. But that one was the one that got me, because I'm on the same page with the guy who the most people in the world just watched right now. And that's a real honor, because I'm seeing the world and he's seeing the world through the same eyes as I do, that same direction. I mean, right after, so he retweeted 2 in a row after that first joke. I had summarized in bullet points very seriously, again, a little humor in it, but the Democrat platform at the time. And he retweeted that as well. And I'm thinking to myself, holy crap, this guy retweeted a joke and then my serious take on it. And it's crazy, like to realize that the leader of the free world, it's one thing if it's something dopey or somebody kissing up to him, because he'd like to retweet a lot of stuff where it's like, "We love you so much." But the stuff that he retweeted from me was legitimate commentary on things. So it's kind of crazy.
No, and it really is incredible. It's I can imagine it's a true honor, for you and everyone who follows you. In terms of where the Republican Party is headed again, you mentioned Trump basically dialing it back with the Twitter, but what else can Republicans be doing now to make an impact? I mean, even everyday Republicans like, me.
Yeah, I was going to say stop sucking, but you don't suck. It's really being loud and fighting back against bullshit narratives. And so when you see like, I went after some folks this weekend. What was it that I went after? I don't know. To be honest with you, one of the things about me is that I don't lie. I learned this from Judge Judy. I don't lie, so I don't have to remember what I said, because I don't have the bandwidth for it. But there was a back and forth, and Twitchy covered it this weekend, of me going after somebody for some sort of policy, either CRT or something like that. And sorry. Voter disenfranchisement from voters being disenfranchised by voter ID laws. And I said, just give me an example. And as soon as you say that, you get a couple of blue checks that say like, well, you're a racist and blah, 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 blah. Don't eat into that. Don't even respond to the insults. Just be like, so you can't give me an example. And stick with it. Stick with facts. Stay clean with people. Stay quick with people. Less is always more. Fight back against this narrative. And I know it sounds stupid to fight back against a narrative on Twitter or on a social media platform or whatever, but where else are you going to do it? Where else do you have an opportunity and an audience in front of a lot of people to do that? You're not yelling at somebody on the subway in New York. It's you just have to express your truth and what you believe in and do it consistently.
Definitely. One last question about you personally. You started off, went to law school, changed in terms of, diverting into political comedy. Why did you go into, comedy, and why was that an interest?
I don't know. Because I mean, here's the thing, like if you get paid to talk, which I get paid to talk for a living, like what a great deal. And like talk without really thinking about it. Like you or anybody else who's an attorney or a marketing person or whatever else. I mean, what are there, like 8 jobs in New York, and it goes garbage man, marketing, lawyer, right? That's it. And subway driver, but like taxi cab driver. Sorry, but like, I wanted to just share my opinion, and when I realized things took off on social media, and that I was like suddenly like advising people and doing stuff, like all these media hits. I get tons of media hits. I don't ask for them. Yeah. If I did, my friends actually yelled at me this week, and a couple of like TV and radio executives yelled at me this week. They're like, "Why are you not pushing yourself more?" I'm like, I don't know, because that's not kind of who I am. But it's just, it became a thing. Like I really like talking. I really like sharing my opinion. And at some point you're locked into this career. I just got out of a relationship recently, and I was telling the girl, like she didn't understand. And I'll tell you how recently it was. It was like last week.
2 minutes ago.
Pretty much. Because, the FBI called me and asked me about January 6th. And I was like, I was there for 8 minutes outside. I documented it as part of my On the Road with Tim Young and a few other things I'm working on for the Washington Times and for myself, because I'm going to end up writing a book on 2020 and all that kind of stuff at some point.
Oh, cool.
And she just straight up didn't get it. Every one of my other friends, even you, when I said like the FBI called me, you're like, oh, everybody gets it, right? That's in it. Yeah. She did. And I've been dating her for a while. She did not get it. And so, the first person I had on my phone was my congresswoman and her entire staff. Like 10 seconds later, they took the call. We were in. And then a bunch of lawyers and stuff like that, just in case. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I don't care. That they told me there's no investigation into me. They just wanted to follow up. They're just, checking the boxes. But still intimidating to get a phone call from the FBI at random. But she didn't get it. And I was like, listen, here's the deal. And I won't talk about like, she's in the middle of the country somewhere. I was like, there's a difference, when you're locked into this career and you realize you're like, again, I hate the word influencer. You're a talking head and you're locked in. I cannot come back from what I'm doing. You will not see me, making widgets in a factory at some point in my life. No. I'm all in on this. This is moving forward. And like, I was like, you get to return to a regular life. And I think that's the difference. And I'm not saying that I'm better. I'm just saying it's a different, you get to have a white picket fence and kids and all of that stuff. People are going to know what the hell I've said. And we're to the point that this administration clearly has pointed out that I've done something that is on their radar. I mean, a couple of years ago, the Russian Federation reached out. I used to do RT hits years and years and years ago. But literally like 3 or 4 years ago, the Russian Federation reached out and asked me if I wanted to speak at a conference that the Russian Federation was putting on world free speech or global free speech in Moscow. And I'm like, I'm on some Putin list. So like, there's a lot of weird stuff. And of course I didn't go because although the honeypotting there would have been fantastic. But like, that's, I look at that and I'm like, okay, there's no turning back.
No, for sure not.
So yeah, anyway.
Well, on that note, since there's no turning back, we're going to push you forward. Can you promote yourself? Tell us where we can find you, the different channels, all the, the new apps too. Oh
yeah. So I got on TikTok a week and a half ago. And
don't promote TikTok.
Listen,
that's a spy tool.
Yeah. Once you find out the FBI knows everything about you and your own government spying.
Yeah, you're like nothing else matters.
You stop giving a shit. So like I did TikTok and I got 2.2 million views in a week. So nice. I went viral 4 times in a week. I guess, when you get above, I think 350,000, it counts as a viral hit. But but like everything is Tim Runs His Mouth. You can just follow me on all that stuff. And I just got quoted by Fox News today about the FBI taking that Lego set from that poor guy that like trespassed or whatever in the Capitol on January 6th. So I don't even know what all is going on. But I mean, if you Google Tim Young, I show up.
There you go.
That's a real asshole thing to say at the end of one of these things, but it's just like, just look up my name. Like I'm around. I'm around.
He's around town.
It's New York. You guys get this.
We'll follow you. We know.
Yeah.
We know how to figure it out.
Yeah, TikTok.
On that note, Tim, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I had the best time per usual, and thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Take care, everyone. Have a nice night.
Thank you.